What's going on, gamers? It's Just Crust here, and I'm back with another YouTube video, and today we are doing another Today I Learned, or in this case, these past 2 days I've learned. Um, I didn't do a video yesterday because I only had linear algebra, and honestly, we didn't even cover that much. So I didn't particularly at the time um, care about covering it. But now I had more than linear algebra, so I'm gonna cover it. I watched one of my Christianity lectures. I had economic history again, and I also again have linear to cover from Thursday. So we're gonna start with the Christianity one because the Christianity one's kind of interesting, and by interesting, fucking really weird. Um, So basically, in our class, I don't completely know if I mentioned this, but we cover. That's just one singular ladder. Hold on. Okay, this is not working. Basically, we cover a lot of apocryphal texts or texts that aren't in the canon, particularly the canon of Christianity. So, even the Acts of Paul that we covered last week or on Monday, or the Acts of whatever we just covered on Monday, I don't believe those were canon either. But specifically, Acts of Thomas. I don't think Acts of Thomas in any way are canon. And I know for a fact the thing that we covered today, which was the Acts of Thomas and his wonder-working skin, are absolutely not canon, will never be canon. They should never touch the Christian canon. Christians hate it. It's really weird. And it's also, because it was weird, it's really interesting in a really odd way. And also, this lecture today was given by a TA, or I guess on Wednesday it was given by a TA whose entire dissertation is on the wonders of the Thomas and his wonder-working skin. And so at first we went down through a little breakdown of what the actual Acts of Thomas are and what it looks like. Basically, the Acts of Thomas are split into 3 sections. One where he meets a married couple, basically told them not to consummate their marriage. Basically, sex is never the answer. Da 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 da. Other narratives. Also, it turned daytime in the time it took for me to come back down. That's whack. So other narratives like that, basically a big theme was to stay celibate, which again has been a theme in a lot of apocrypha and just in Christianity in general. So not too surprising. The second part of his act is more focused around he meets with a king. I don't remember the king's name because we didn't talk about this act. Met with a king. The king wants him to build a fortress or a castle or something. And Thomas instead spends his time building a spiritual castle. Basically, it works on his mental, as you do. That made the king pretty mad. And then the third act, the biggest or the most important act that spread a lot on its own, was Thomas being martyred. Thomas fucking gets killed in India. Why are you alive? It is the daytime. Thomas gets fucking murked in India. That's a thing. That's a theme, I guess or not even a theme. That is what happens. Is that, or at least in the more popular Acts of Thomas. Now, the Acts of Thomas and his wonder-working skin, if you could assume, are not the most widespread, because it's an interesting, different story. It tells the story, or it begins basically with the 12 apostles drawing lots to see where they'll go, because I believe it is in John, the Gospel of John, where Monday was the Acts of John, not the Acts of Paul. Acts of Paul, I believe, is canon if they exist. But it was very John. And in the Gospel of John, When Jesus returns, Jesus is like, spread Christianity far and wide, please, to the ends of the earth. So the 12 apostles draw lots to see where they will go. And Thomas draws the lot of India. Thomas does not want to go to India. So Jesus tells Thomas that Peter and Matthew will also go to India with him, which was kind of cap. Jesus told both of them, he was like, you will accompany Thomas to India, and then you will go to your own places. You will make sure he gets to India safely, and then you'll go. And so that's what happens. They accompany him to India. They all then go to wherever they need to be. And he gets sold into slavery, but on his own choice, kinda. It was kinda his choice. Like, the king sent an assistant looking for a slave to buy. Jesus appeared, sold Thomas into slavery under, with Jesus's knowledge, or with Thomas's knowledge, into slavery. And then while he was a slave, he was sent from the king to the governor of a place. I think it was just, the governor of India or whatever. So Thomas then starts to connect with the governor's wife, and he converts the governor's wife to Christianity. And the wife was basically like, okay, tell me something. How do I know you're real? How do I know your religion's real, etc., etc., etc.? How do I know your religion's better than mine? Da, 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 da. All the themes of Christianity at this point. To which Thomas said, take me to your idols and we will talk to them, because I guess in Christianity, at that time at least, idols were strictly forbidden, and idols were the sign of paganism and other, polytheistic religions. So he goes to those idols and he prays to Jesus, and it was like, Jesus, drive out all the negativity and etc. within them. And basically, instead of like all the gods that have been talking to her through those idols, it was actually demons, which was an interesting observation to make. And then governor comes back, Lucius, spelled in a weird way. And Lucius is mad. Lucius does not like it. Lucius knows things are going wrong, and he recognizes one common person. Thomas. Knows as Thomas. Everything has been starting to go awry since Thomas got here. What the hell's that about? So, he arrests Thomas. Or he flays Thomas, more specifically. He flays Thomas. He skins Thomas alive. Which, that's kind of a bummer. Cowabummer, dude. Like, he gets skinned alive. He's still alive, though. Like, make no mind. Thomas is built different. Thomas is still alive at this point of him being fucking flayed. And to which, the wife was like, the wife of the governor was like, yo, like, please stop. What the hell are you doing? And then she kills herself. And then Thomas was like, oh my god, she just killed herself. What the hell? What the hell's wrong with these people? And then he was like, with his flayed self, like, him being fucking dead, or not dead, him being, skinless, was like, don't worry, sweetums, or don't worry, woman, I will bring you back to life. So, the governor hears this and then decides to torture him more. He decides to torture him. He decides to put vinegar and salt in his wounds. Thomas then praised God and was like, God, I'm so sorry. Like, maybe it's because, like, I'm known as Doubting Thomas, but, like, please, I'm suffering. Like, I know you're close. Like, please help me. And then God was like, oh, fucking fine, I guess. And helped him. And basically was like, you want this woman to be brought from the dead? How about, and just like, go wrap your skin around her. His flayed skin. Just wrap your skin around her and she'll be fine. And he was like, that's a little weird. But okay. And so I did it. He did it. And what the... Oh, this is how I dug back. Whoops. But like he did it. He wrapped his skin around her and she rose from the dead. Fantastic. Now what? Jesus also told them to go to a different city and spread the gospel there. He then spread the gospel there. After again being, quote, healed, unquote, by Jesus, Jesus did not reattach his skin. I want that to be clear. He did not reattach his skin. So Thomas went, skin in hand, miraculous, wonder-working skin in hand, to the other town, did some miracles there. The priests got mad at him. The priests were about to stone him to death. And then Jesus intervened, made them all like levitate and froze them in place. And then the priests were like, holy God, oh my God, he's real. Like, okay, maybe he's right. And then converted all of them to Christianity too. And then it ends with Thomas floating on a cloud to talk to Paul and Mary about his apostolic journey, which is a little weird. All of this is like a little weird. And the best way for that TA described it was, this is, first off, absolutely should just be taken as a story, like, rather than historical fact. He was like, there are minimal, like, some things that line up, like the king that he was referencing was a king in the 1st century AD of India. Like, that is true. But basically take this with a lot of grains of a lot of different salts. And we also talked about how it's conflicting from the normal Gospel of Thomas. The normal Gospel of or the normal Acts of Thomas, my bad. The normal Acts of Thomas end with him dying. Like, that is a, like, pretty, like, that's the most famous part. They end with him dying. So what's up with that? And the answer is they don't know. Or that they kind of acknowledge that in some cases he dies, and in some he doesn't. And that's kind of where they leave it. There has been fusions I've seen, and he mentioned, of like the normal acts and the normal acts and the wonder-working skin acts, where like him floating away on a cloud to talk to Paul and Mary is temporary, and it's like the happy ending over, or like the happy ending like lasts a couple of days, and then he goes back down to continue his journey throughout India, which then gets him martyred, like in the original acts. I don't know. It's all kind of sus to me. Also, what was noted, and what I find interesting actually, is that obviously with a lot of texts, both apocryphal and canon texts, there's historical discrepancies. Some churches claim that they were founded by apostles, and some were like by certain apostles, while on the same token, the Gospels say that a different apostle was sent there, or vice versa, or like some churches or different sects on different parts of the world lay claim to the same apostle, and this, that, and the other. And the same is the case with this really specific instance of an apostle being flayed. In modern Christianity, or in Christianity as a whole, it is not Thomas who's known as for being sent to India. The apostle that was sent to India in most viewpoints was Bartholomew, actually. And on the same token, Bartholomew in Christianity is known as the flayed disciple. And a lot of the artwork seen all around of said skinless men, is of Bartholomew and not Thomas. And these are just interesting little discrepancies that kind of also like illustrate the story aspect of both of these, and of some of the Gospels, and how some of the acts are definitely just kind of stories meant to show rather that Jesus can work miracles, and not that, like, I don't know, that Thomas was a man working with a skin the whole time. I don't know. And it was also, again, a very focused on chastity. The whole acts of the wonder-working skin were focused on chastity. It was pretty interesting. Because, like, throughout reading, like, letters of Paul, like, the Thessalonians and Galatians, like, you'll see that there's different issues that different sections of the Christian community are dealing with. And a couple of the biggest ones are, like, circumcision and stuff. But this is kind of like one of the first texts we've read that had, like, a hard line, like, absolutely no sex, like, not even within your marriage, like, you whores, like, stop. It was overall, first off, really weird. Really weird text. Man to heal people, wrapped his skin around him. We should not, like, pretend that that's not, like, weird. And some of the artwork, really weird. And also, we should note that he was not given his skin back onto it. Like, he was not healed to the point where, like, he had skin on his body. Um, Jesus, at the end, before they flew away on the cloud, he gave him back his skin. Yeah, he was just like, my son, like, glue, and he, like, glued it onto him. And, like, the Greek word for glue was there. So, like, it was a neat little story, and I think, like, specifically for this, I will just use the word story. It was a neat little story. And so that ends our Christianity talk. Let me just write down the timestamp. So next we'll be talking roughly about the economic history. And today we focused a lot on okay. What button? Oh, Q does that. Okay. We focused a good amount on Western agriculture, or Midwest agriculture specifically. Excuse me. Oh my god, let me drink a water. And, God. Even more specifically, we discussed quite a bit the continued rise of wheat, which I find funnier and funnier, like, by the day, honestly. That, like, we can spend an entire class just talking about wheat. And it's, yeah, like, literally, that's all we talked about. We're like, wheat, corn, and we touched a little bit on oats, so, like, God forbid. I'm trying to think of where I want to put an enchantment room. Like, right here. But we talked a lot about wheat. We talked about eventually some of the troubles with wheat, some of the struggles per se, because it wasn't all smooth sailing. There was a lot of interesting, or no, I keep using the word interesting. Not all of it's interesting, I swear. But there were some conflicts with wheat at the time. Specifically, 1, 2, 3, 4. Specifically, just with there was an issue, and at first, it led to a rising of farmers, and it was price discrepancies. Prices were really mismanaged in the Midwest, to where wheat prices in general, as a whole, throughout the world, all fell. Like, they all fell. They fell by about 40%, I believe, which really screwed the West. Like, that was really screwing with them. And what was they blamed a lot of things. Hold on, let me completely be honest. The farmers blamed a lot of shit. I don't know how deep I want it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. This could be fine, I think. Oh, copper. But the farmers blamed a lot of things, obviously. But the biggest one or a couple of the big ones that they blamed, which all ended up being East. Like, they blamed the Eastern financiers, they blamed the Eastern bankers, because prices were falling abroad. However, prices of railroads, that was another one that, like, is very interconnected. The prices of railroads increased at the time. The long haul, like, if you were, say, going from Chicago to New York, was the big example. Long haul trips decreased immensely, purely because of competition. There was so much competition in the railroad industry. Also, we need to make this longer. Maybe we can just make this a 9x9, I suppose. But basically, there was a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There was a lot. 6. Of competition for the longer haul, because that's obviously much more profitable. However, for short haul, there was no competition. It was you had one railroad to go, no matter what, no matter how bad or good the price was, you had to use that railroad. Normally, it ended up being actually decently high. Those prices stagnated to an extent, while the price of long haul dropped significantly. I don't remember the exact number of how much it dropped, but it dropped pretty significantly. Um, and the short haul didn't. And that affected farmers. And also, what affected farmers a lot was interest rates. Interest rates, while seemingly looking to go down somewhat, um, the real interest rate, basically interest minus inflation, I believe, inflation being gamma in the equation or something. Um, that inflation rate, looking at, I think it was 1870s, was about 15 to 18%. It was really high, and farmers were scared because farmers had to borrow money. The capital expenses of farming were more expensive post antebellum and during the postbellum than antebellum period. Even though you'd expect that that'd be different due to like the Homestead Act and even more land being available. That just simply wasn't the case. The capital expense was more expensive because they had to buy more equipment, more machinery to keep shit going, or to keep all of it going, which was another touch and another aggravation. And that also combined with foreclosure rates. While foreclosure rates on their own did not seem high, like 2 to 4%, what you'd realize is that most farms were in a set of something called like neighborhood farms. So there was roughly like, on average, like again, general, like don't want to like just ballpark estimate. There's in general like 15. Damn gravel. In ballpark 15 farms around each other, just on average, whatever, just throwing a number out there. When using the lowest foreclosure rate, I could say, or by year 3, the chances or the odds that at least one neighbor was going to be foreclosed was, I believe, 75%. Like a ridiculous number, I might add. Hold on, like a ridiculous number. And if the foreclosure rates were the high mark, 5%, um, absolutely, you'd like 95%, I believe was the 90% it would end up being that you'd see a neighbor foreclosed. That everything that I just said scared the farmers. We talked a lot about the farmer reaction called the Granger movement, basically. And the Grangers, it started as like the National Granger. It was a secret society originally. It was like the National Granger Society House of Husbandry or fucking whatever, something stupid. And within that, it was a secret society of farmers. And they would, teach like secret plowing techniques, no homo, like had different plants that they were planting, stuff like that. Innocent farming, farming tips and tricks. They were the real YouTube tutorialists of the time. But as these discrepancies and as these like challenges came forward, they grew more vocal, obviously. And they kind of noticed that in general, they were getting the short end of the stick. Like, in most regards, they were getting the short end of the stick. Especially with capital gains. They were losing money, or the prices of wheat were going down like a good amount, like decreased domestically, like 60% maybe, from like $2 a bushel to like 80 cents a bushel or something ridiculous. And again, the international price went down like 40%, bare minimum. They were screwed. They were getting screwed. And they blamed tariffs. They blamed the government. They blamed Republicans specifically. At that time, again, like the Lincoln Party, not today's Republicans. They blamed like Republicans. And they blamed the railroad system for being too expensive. They blamed basically everybody in the East as well. And if you could not tell, I was not moving because I was using my hands because you know me. I need to make a farm room, but I can make a book first. start the enchantment room at least. Paper. Sorry, I'm trying to remember the recipe. Like at this, just like that. No, you know what? We can think on this. Um, there she is. Oh wow, even less diamonds than I remember. Excuse me. Anyway, disregard. We talked a lot about the responses, and the response was the Granger movement. The Granger movement influenced a lot of future political movements. We haven't gotten like completely there yet, or we haven't analyzed them in depth. Such as the Greenback movement. 1, 2, 3, 4. Such as the Greenback movement and other Greenback movement, Alliance movement, and Populist movement. And the Populist movement was the most productive, particularly, specifically because, like all other third parties, the reason that it's still not around today is that some or all of its core beliefs were adopted into a different party. And in this case, it was adopted into the Republican Party, I believe. No. It was adopted into the Democratic Party, which does make sense because eventually that does go to the Republican Party. Yeah, it's tough to keep track. And that was seen at most when it was when the Democrats ran William Jennings Bryan as their candidate because he was a big populist empathizer. He was from Nebraska, etc., etc. The gist, you know it. I'm gonna use this area as my big farm, actually. And that's kind of what we just talked about. We talked about those kind of impacts of the wheat industry and such. And I'll write down 2712 on the timer. And now lastly, we have linear algebra. Linear algebra, we spent a good amount of time doing practice problems. So I don't particularly have anything specifically interesting. Or, in general, it's linear algebra, not much is interesting. Let's talk about. We basically elaborated on what we learned last time, which was talking a lot about bases. Bases of row space, column space, null space. Because last time we didn't talk about the base of row space. We talked about the base of column space, and we talked about the base of null space. So we started off by just talking and doing like the basis of column space, which was cool. It was very cool. I learned, or it helped us learn whatever. But then we went over the base of, what's it called? The base of row space, and I'm actually gonna write it out. So give me one. All right, and we're back, and we're on. Oh, that's the wrong thing. We're back, and we're on MS Paint, or relatively MS Paint. And so we've already discussed the bases of column space and the basis of null space. Both of those require taking a matrix and putting it into row echelon form. And by this point, I'm not going to explain that all because that's like first week of linear algebra type stuff. So we learned about all of that, and we also learned about two ways to do the basis of row space. So given matrix A, so there's two methods, which was one, basically relating the basis of row A to the basis of column A transposed. So basically, when you have a matrix that's an M by N, transpose it just makes it an N by M, matrix. So I can show you an example of that. I'm going to use just my notes because I have my notes in front of me. So give a matrix A, which is, I'm also going to cut it short because I'm not going to do the row reduction because I hate the row reductions. 117, 1, -2, 2, 3, -1, and 2, -4, 5, 8, 4. So what we would do to find the column space is we would or the basis of the column space is we would reduce it until it got into a specifically, we would reduce it to where it got into a row echelon form of blah 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 blah, where basically 0 0 0 whatever. So like we would find the row or the columns with leading terms in it in the row echelon form, and then we would relate those columns that we chose, or the columns that are the leading term columns, back to the original matrix to find the basis. So we were going to do, so if we have this, we can do the exact same thing to find column of A or the basis of A transpose. So basis of A transpose, or the basis column of A transpose, basis column A transpose would basically require us to look at the matrix A transpose, which is -3, 6, 1, 1, 7, 1, -2, 2, 3, -1, 2, -4, 5, 8, -4. Look at that, and then set this to a row echelon form. So through our row reduction, we can find that it ends up being 1, 3, 8, 0, 5, 13. And obviously I'm not like teaching this, because if I was teaching this, I would show the row reductions. So through row reduction, we get this. This is in row echelon form. And so now we look for the columns that have leading terms. This column has a leading term. 1. And this column has a leading term. The 5. And so we're going to go back to A transpose. And so we can say our basis of A transpose, or the basis of column of A transpose, is equal to -3, 6, -1, 1, 7, 1, -2, 2, 3, -7. So that's cool. But how do we go back? Well, again, the column of A transpose is roughly the row of A. So, by that logic, that's an awful arrow. By that logic, basis of the row of A is just equal to the row. -1, 7. 1, -2, 2, 3, 7. Does that, that's, that is not a 7. That is a -1. My handwriting is not amazing. That's both because of the notes and myself. -1. So that's your first method, and you might think, that's valid. That's an interesting method. Yeah, it's an interesting method. It's not the only method, in particular. We also have a second method, which is just starting out with the matrix and putting it into row echelon form anyway. So again, our matrix A equals -3, 6, -1, 1, 7. Roughly, this might be missing a minus or two. The number doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to like explain a little bit of what I understand through my notes. 5, 8, -4. So we can just, instead of transferring it to A transpose, which we don't want to do, we can just row reduce this anyway. So through row reduction, which again, if I was actually trying to like comprehensively teach, I would show, we get it to be 1, -2, 0, -1, 3. 0, 0, 1, 2, -2, and then row of zeros. So you might be thinking, how can we find our bases? So we can look at a couple of things. We can look at the leading terms again. Leading term here and a leading term here. So to find our column, we can find multiple bases through here. So a basis of column A, we look at this, we see that we have 1 and 2 columns with our leading terms, and we refer. I'll write this. Refer to original A. I just activated the erasers. So the basis of column A, when we refer back, we can see that row 1 and row 3, R1, R3, are leading terms. So we look at the R1. These are columns. We can see that column 1 and column 3. If we refer here, column 1 and column 3 are our leading terms. So we look at these columns. So our basis of column A is just -1 or -3, 1, 2, -1, 2, 5. That's a basis. We found our basis. So how does this method though, how does this help us with the basis of row of A though? Well, if we look at, I'll pull up a different color instead of trying to erase because okay, cool. Again, we have our leading term here and our leading term here. But instead of taking the columns, we can take the row. Are you getting what I'm getting at? It's the row. And we can take this row. But we're not going to refer to the original A. We are going to take that row, or take these rows, that's the wrong button, take the rows straight from our row reduced. Take from row reduced A. So our basis of row A would be equal to the rows right there. 1, -2, 0, -1, 3, and 0, 0, 1, 2, -2. So that's the other way, and that's the simple way. And on the next side, on the next token, you can also find your basis of the null. I don't particularly have the space to calc it out entirely, or like explain. I also just spilled water all down my shirt. But seeing using the rank nullity theorem, and just in general knowing what null space is, you see you have 3 columns here that are not your leading terms, and these are free variables. So you would set this kind of matrix equal to 0. Or you can just basically say that this is x2. If you were, instead of saying like x1, like x2, x4, and x5, and you can set them equal to variables. So like x2 equals A, x4 equals B, x5 equals C. And then you can plug those back into this equation. So like, for example, if x1 minus 2A minus B plus 3C. So you can find out that x1 is equal to, I don't know, 2A plus B minus 3C. So on and so forth, until you find out, or you find that matrix that gives you the null space, or the null space find set, basically you make it a span. So when you pull out all of these, that makes it weird to explain. Like, let me, I guess, erase. We don't need the matrix anymore, actually, because we're done with what involves the actual matrix. This eraser is very small. Maybe make it a little bigger. I, again, am not an expert in linear algebra. I failed my exam that I had like recently on it. I just kind of understand this. I didn't understand the applications of it, but I understand this in general. So if we just remove all of this, we can see again, we set, x1 equal to that, and then you can look at the second one. You have x3 plus 2b minus 2c. So x3 is equal to negative 2b plus 2c. So then you can put those solutions in the matrix, where that would equal null A. Null A equals the set 2a plus b minus 3c, a negative 2b plus 2c, b and c. And then you make it a span by taking out all of those variables. So like a 2 1 0 0 0 da 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 da, which is just equivalent to a span, and that is your basis. Like, basically, roughly. I don't have enough room, particularly. Here I can actually just explain it fully. So you have your null A, or like null A is equal to, I guess the last time we had it was 2a plus b minus 3c, a negative 2b plus 2c, b and c. And then you can take those variables out. So the set a2 1 0 0 0 plus b 1 0 negative 2 1 0 plus c negative 3 0 2 0 1. That well, hold on. The bitch in me really needs to remember A, B, C are elements of all reals, by the way. Remember that. Which then just makes your null A equal to the span of those three matrices, which is interesting. It's really neat. We learned how to find null in a way that also found us a basis. That's what our professor said. And this, or particularly this, is also a basis for null of A. Would you look at that? Isn't that intriguing? Are you not entertained? I wouldn't be either. All right. Anyway, that's about all I got for you today. I just wanted to return to the Minecraft to give you a nice friendly send-off. So yeah, I'm glad you can be with me on this journey through my first relative week of doing this. It's been really fun. It's been helpful to kind of start remembering some of the concepts, especially like in economic history and stuff like that, where it's more abstractions. If you enjoyed, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you on Monday.